You have a ton of boys who were beaten up, virally humiliated, and then socially humiliated, and then threatened after that if you report, we will kill you. And so I do understand why the boys didn't come forward. And I do understand why the parents who learned that their kids had been beaten up also didn't come forward, because snitches still get stitches.
Can you think back to a time in your life when something awful happened to you, but you were too scared to do anything about it, too terrified of retaliation, that if you said something or you did something about it, stood up for yourself even, it would just get worse? You know that sick feeling, a feeling that kids, teens in the East Valley and beyond have been grappling with, some for over a year. But now, finally, the Gilbert Goons are starting slowly to see some consequences for the terror they have spread in our community. And there is a group of powerful moms who will not stop just at those arrests. They want their kids, their neighbors, their friends, and their family members to feel safe, and more importantly, to feel heard. It's all happening right now on MOMCAST. Hi everyone, I'm Emma Jade. Welcome to MOMCAST. 3 months ago, when 16-year-old Preston Lord was brutally attacked and murdered outside of a house party in Queen Creek, mothers in the community mourned. And then they mobilized, tracking down the kids they thought could be responsible, investigating leads, searching social media, talking to friends, family members, their own kids who were at the party, spreading the hashtag Justice for Preston Lord all over Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, and beyond. They've turned over all their work and continue to do so to authorities, hoping the tireless research they've done will bring peace back to their homes, back to the East Valley. But for these moms, it doesn't just end with arrests. They want real change, and that starts with us. I caught up with one of those moms, Katie McPherson. Tell me about this army of moms that have just come together during such a scary, sad, tragic time in the East Valley. It seems like there's this group of powerful, compassionate women who are coming together. What's happening?
Yeah, I don't even know. I actually was laying in bed last night trying to figure out how we all started. I do a lot of this for a living, like youth mental health stuff and social media responsibility stuff. So I feel like this is kind of what I do every day. But these other women who asked me to join forces with them are business owners and stay-at-home moms and PTO moms and just your regular everyday person. And we all just decided to come together and try to help where we can. There's a group Facebook Messenger thread, and then we just kept adding people to it. But it is a small group, and we have very defined rules around like what we're good at. And that's been formed over the last, I'd say 65 days. Like we probably met each other online. So I did not know any of them in person when we started chatting. And then as we started doing events, we obviously got to know each other. I mean, I didn't know who Lily Waterfield was when we did the first walk on November 28th. Like she said she was going to be there and she would meet me there. And then I never found her. And so I was like, is this a real person? Like, two of like the players, so to speak, who made a lot of things happen. One has remained anonymous, and the other two ladies who formed Lily Waterfield kind of came out, so to speak.
Tell me what you mean by made things happen. What are these women doing? What's happening?
There are various layers of what they're doing. Creating events, doing posts, dropping videos, dropping photos, inviting people to go to town council meetings, like really mobilizing the masses to create a channel where we're all, sort of fighting for the common good in our own way. Most of those people in November were moms. And then in December, I was very outspoken about we need some dads to join this. Like sometimes as a woman, especially in the field that I'm in advocacy, I feel like sometimes people are staring at me like, oh, there she is, that Karen. So I really felt like we needed dads to be a part of this and to have a voice in this too. And so in December, council meetings, walks, you see more and more dads and children, students joining the cause too.
When I did my interview with the Arizona Republic, who just gave me the whole rundown of what's going on in the Preston Lord case and with the Gilbert Goons, he brought up this army of moms and the research and the investigating that you guys have done. Tell me a little bit about what has happened here.
I do social media responsibility for a living. And so I go out to local schools, I do student assemblies, I do parent nights, I talk to law enforcement officials about sort of the latest trends. So for me personally, like connecting the dots on social media was pretty simple. Kids are awesome, but they're also not so smart when it comes to their public persona. So a lot of what was posted was on public platforms that had all of the details of not only who they were, but who they hang around, who they follow, who they're connected to, locations they were at, sort of just all the details of their activities, and they were sort of proud of it. And so, when you go to one boy and he has a video of being arrested by the police, and you look at his followers and you go to their videos, sometimes there were similar videos, sometimes there were, different angles of that video or different details or joking around about that. And so for me personally, it was not that hard to connect the dots of who might have been involved in what I call the runway to Preston's attack and sort of this blitz style. But in that, like, these videos of these attacks, they're very, very quick. They attack their victim, they swarm their victim within the whole thing, start to finish, is probably less than a minute and a half. And so I needed extra set of eyes to piece out like who's who, who's doing what is the motive here? Do we have a motive in this? A lot of what we found as we pieced through the videos were random attacks on victims where there was no motive, or there was a typical motive like, you talked to my girlfriend, so we're all going to jump you at the in and out. So, we certainly don't purport, and I want to make that super clear, that we are a detective or law enforcement or anything like that. But certainly with so many children involved, we were naturally curious as to like, how did this start? And how does this end? We have a child who is deceased after going to a very fun, typical party, and now he's not coming home. And so this, in our mind, as a band of moms, can never ever happen again to anyone.
What was and what is the purpose of all of you moms that are in this group? What are you hoping happens?
We are personally hoping that this movement doesn't end ever. Like awareness and education are key. I think what we've learned as parents, and myself included, I have 4 teenage daughters that were out that night at various parties, who almost went to this party and turned around, went to another party that got out of control where police came and left. And so, I think we are really committed to continuing awareness, raising education, digging into, like, in my mind, there are like 4 solid lanes of accountability. We have the towns and cities, we have police accountability, we have parent accountability, and we have school accountability. And then on the peripheral, we have, community members, caregivers, faith leaders, businesses. We want to engage all hands on deck, because it is going to take all of us. This is not just a police issue. It's very much a parenting issue and very much a community issue. And the nexus for this started in Gilbert for a long time. and was unknown to police. And, in their defense, I will say you have a ton of boys who were beaten up, virally humiliated, and then socially humiliated, and then threatened after that if you report, we will kill you. And so I do understand why the boys didn't come forward. And I do understand why the parents who learned that their kids had been beaten up also didn't come forward, because snitches still get stitches. And it's still not cool to report. And the phrase, if you see something, say something, does not line up with teen brain at all. Like, we need to stop saying that or add on an extra phrase. If you see something, say something. How would you like to handle this? Because teenagers know who gets it and who doesn't, who they can report to, who's going to follow through, who is going to follow through, and there will be no retaliation against me. And we have some adults that unfortunately get these reports and they don't know how to handle them. It does get worse for that student. And so we have to get really clear about reporting. And again, for our mom group, continuing to raise the awareness and education. And I've been doing this a long time. I'll go to a parent night, there's 20 people there, and they're not the 20 people that I really need to reach. Yeah. And so this movement for me personally and professionally is super exciting, because it appears that at least 2 towns and 1 city are listening. And so if we can continue that listening and understanding that it doesn't matter if you live in an apartment or a $4 million house, we are all in this together, and our kids are screaming for help, screaming for help.
What's been the most frustrating part about this process since Preston Lord's tragic death? What has been the most frustrating process for you and the other moms?
I think the communication of officials, whether it's a mayor or a police chief. Early on, I believe there was a very open window to come out day one and say, this will not be tolerated. This is going to be taken care of. You have my word as police chief, as mayor, that we are condemning not only the violence, but we are condemning these acts, and we will take care of this. And to continue that ongoing pervasive message. Those messages were not being given. In the absence of communication, the public filled in the blanks with all sorts of wrong information, misinformation, rumors, awful hate towards our police chiefs and mayors and police officers in general. So I think communication early on, the crisis response was not there, which makes sense to me as a trained person in trauma, that you either fight, you flee, or you freeze. And we saw the freeze. Everyone was frozen. Nobody was talking. There was some unwillingness or reluctancy on the part of chiefs and mayors to say anything so that they wouldn't say the wrong thing. But not saying anything led people to believe that you're not doing your job, nobody's doing anything, we got a dead kid. In the past week, 10 days, I have seen an about face, and it's been so refreshing and so comforting as a mom who has a broken heart over all of this, to see these men and women finally come forward and show their face, and not a prepared statement facing your town council. You're facing us on TV and saying, we've got this, and we're making arrests, and we will not stop, and we will get justice for these victims as well as Preston and his family.
What do you think the change was? Because it's been 3 months since Preston passed. What has changed recently? Because I agree with you. I think recently we're seeing the not scripted, we're seeing more emotion. Is it pressure? What do you think?
I think it's pressure, but I met with the mayor of Gilbert last week. I met with the mayor of Queen Creek last week, and I said, I want to see your faces. I want to hear from your chief. I don't need or want to know all the details of the case. I don't want to put Preston's case at risk or anyone's case at risk. I don't want kids to be blamed who weren't involved. I get that everyone in America wants information now. That's the society we live in. But I do expect, as your role and expectation as a community member, is that you are saying something something comforting, something reassuring
Mhm.
to make sure that not only I, but our family and my children understand that this won't be allowed. And so I don't know if those messages landed on them or not, but I think the pressure for mayors to resign, just the social media presence, your presence as media doing a town hall, national news is picking up on this. Um, Dateline, The New Yorker, all sorts of publications have been out here asking questions. So I assume, unfortunately, that's what it took. And I understand, from there, I do understand the other side of it that as a mayor, you can't give all the details of the case. As a police chief, you cannot tell legally, details of the case. But Brene Brown says, in the absence of information, the story in my head is XYZ. And the story in many people's heads is you are not doing your job and you don't care.
You nailed it. I could not agree more. In your mom group, I had heard that you guys even turned over what you as women, as moms, dug up to police.
Yes. And they have been actively making arrests based on not only, our tips, but many other people's tips and their own, obviously, investigation, which is their expertise.
Tell me a little bit again what that process was like. You and the other moms on this chat, what was happening? Because it seems like someone would get a video and then you guys could look at it together and then figure out who's who. And tell me a little bit about the process because it really is. Honestly, I think it's empowering. I think it's empowering to moms because so many mothers are so distraught over this case.
Yeah. I mean, again, I've been working with teenagers for 30 years and I have four. They're kind of sloppy. And so a lot of the boys were wearing the same outfit every time they went out Friday and Saturday night. So it was not that hard to piece together when they have a super public TikTok and they're sitting in the back of a police car videoing it and making fun of the officers or videoing their friends being arrested or at least talked to. And then driving down Gilbert Road going 160 miles an hour with their phone in their hand. Like their platform had their name on it and had videos with them in it. So it was not that hard. And I always tell people in my talks, like, there's no mystery to your child's life. Everything you want to know is on your child's phone. It's in the text messages, the direct messages, their note section, their Google Docs, their school email. Anything you want to know is in that phone. And if you are not paying attention and looking at the phone or using an app that does the work for you, then you don't know what your child's doing. And that is the case with some of my neighbors and friends whose sons are involved in this, that they had no idea that their child was involved in this. And I believe them.
And how has that gone? Because I'm sure there's a lot of moms who are feeling awful because their sons were part of this. How have you guys been able to navigate that within your community? Because the East Valley is as large as it is, it still has that small town feel. How has that been?
I mean, it's been heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking to have conversations with people I've known for a very long time to say, I think your kid's involved. You need to check into this. And then to get a call that, yep, my kid was involved. What do I do now? And people are distraught and sobbing and, reflecting on like, where did I go wrong? How could this happen? How could he be involved with these people? And what I would say is, from a child development standpoint, everybody wants to belong. And when you don't feel like you belong at home or at school, you will find a place to belong. And a lot of these kids came together with a crew and a cause. And as said at the town hall so beautifully by Dr. Aaron Krasnow from ASU, there were witnesses, and the witnesses provided validation. The witnesses that stood close, the witnesses that video recorded it, the witnessing of it, the role of the bystander in this reinforced the perpetration of the violence. And so, not only do I want to help the victims, but I want to help these sweet boys who I do believe are sweet, which is not a popular opinion. all behavior is communication. And these boys, for a year and a half, 2 years, were screaming for help. And when you look at some of their backgrounds, there is substance abuse in the household with parents. There is domestic violence. There is addiction. There is neglect. Not all of them, but for some of them, they are reenacting things that they have seen since they were an infant. And so, people ask me, like, are you surprised that this went unchecked for so long? I'm really not at all. It's the perfect storm of like all the things that I've been screaming about for years. It's drugs and alcohol, it's social media and low supervision and no monitoring, and it's access and the ability to have enough affluence to be able to do some of these things, to drive a fancy sports car, to go places because I have money to do so, or I'm spotting my 17 friends to do so because I have the ability to do so. And so I feel so deeply for all of them. I just want to scoop them all up. And a lot of people are like, they're monsters and they're this and they're that. I believe that the conditions that allowed this to go on, both at home and at school and the community, are also pieces that we all have a part in and we need to look at.
See, and that's what I really love about what you are doing, is that this goes beyond the Preston Lord case. This goes beyond the, gosh, dozens of other videos of kids getting beat up. You want to make a change from like here on out. What does that look like?
We have to strike while the iron is hot. People are now aware. They're aware that there's been a lot of darkness in our community and our sleepy, beautiful town. Is our town safe? 100% yes. When we look at the population of how many teenagers we have, I think this morning I counted up, we probably have 50,000 teenagers just in Gilbert. So of the 50,000, we have about 60 who have been perpetrating this type of violence that I can see. So percentage wise, terrible, but in the whole big scheme of things, how do we stop sort of those lower level things that, started out as bullying and harassment and then escalated to this kind of off-campus stuff? And so I think what that looks like is listening sessions, more town halls, tiny things. Like I've always wanted to do Rock the Block, where every Friday night a block literally blocks itself off and plays like kick the can and freeze tag and old school games like we used to, and connects off of a screen in real time. It's what I dream of for Arizona, is that we come together in community and recognize that this terrible thing has happened. But how do we turn around the intensity of this and turn it into leadership for these students, both the assailants and the victims as well?
I can't help but feel so proud to be part of a community where these moms are coming together. And I know that it's probably been so difficult because you get some people in there who are all about the rumors, or some people in there who are not in the same headspace as you are. How have you kept it in a positive direction?
It's been really hard. Like every day I wake up, there's an extra layer or complexity to the noise, the negative noise. And so it's been very difficult. But I just rest on the pillars of wellness. Like our kids want to thrive. Our kids don't want to act like this. And so how do we as a community lead them in the right direction, lead their parents in the right direction, give them resources and support them? I mean, even for the boys that people are talking poorly about, I, as an advocate, I have a duty as a community member, I believe, and a fellow parent to make sure that after arrested, we're providing the conditions and the environment for him to thrive. A lot of these boys are juveniles, which means they're going to be arrested. They have no priors, and they're coming home and they're going to be sitting next to our daughters and sons in science class. And we have a lot of people up in arms about that if they were arrested for this assault, they should not go to that school anymore. And that's not, schools can't do that. They can't, block them from going to school. So the question is, what do we do now? We have to provide a safety net for all students. And again, this is a very unpopular opinion, even in my, not the mom group you're talking about, but in my greater community of friends, there are a lot of people really, really angry, and rightfully so. These kids put our town and our kids at risk. However, if they're going to be arrested and be out the next day, now what? How do we stop them from doing this again? How do we provide the support? And there's all sorts of support. There's diversion programs, there's probation, there's community programs, there's therapy. We have a ton of amazing nonprofit partners, the Meadows, John Vulcan Academy, Not My Kid, Community Bridges. There's so many resources in this town. I don't think people know about it. And so I'm excited to like put that into a hub and really offer those. Now, we can't force these families or these boys to be a part of that, but we can certainly offer it.
You can imagine doing this kind of work brings rumors, it brings hate. It's what social media is infamous for. But Katie says they try and spread the idea of being an upstander, not a bystander, a term that she actually got from a movie, and it's catching in the East Valley. Thanks for watching this episode. I'm Emma Jade. I'll see you next time right here on MOMCAST.